How did Prince Harry go from lovable larrikin to pathetic wash-up in just a few short years? That's the question millions of his former fans are asking themselves and wondering if they'll ever see their cheeky ginger emerge again. Prince Harry had the whole of the United Kingdom wrapped around his little finger. He was the apple of his mother's eye, the favourite of his beloved grandmother, and held in the highest regard by his legions of fans. But since his marriage to Meghan Markle, the much-loved prince has lost his way. He's abandoned his family and country, ruined his reputation, spread lies, lost lucrative contracts, and now he could be losing his marriage. Sky News All Stars Esther Krakue, Carolyn Russo and Dan Wooton unpack the messy life of Prince Harry and ask if the wayward prince can find his way back home. Arguably, Prince Harry's biggest loss after his marriage to Meghan Markle has been his family, who he initially turned his back on, but now the royal family refuse to have anything to do with him, says Sky News All-Star Carolyn Russo.
They have stripped him officially now of the HRH titles on the website, the royal website, so he has been cast out of the family for good. He will not be attending the memorial service for our late Queen. He's not been invited, and neither has Meghan Markle.
Now, equally, we've been hearing for months about potential discussions, offers of truce to men-family relations, and it's been reported that Harry's latest apparent offer of truce has been rejected by the palace.
Yeah, there is another story suggesting that there may be efforts to extend an olive branch or to try and repair those very, very strained relations, and that an insider claiming that Harry had reached out to try and call a truce, that he'd even spoken to his brother William and suggested to him that he and Meghan were willing to move back to London and serve the king. From where I'm sitting, Caroline, I see absolutely no signs of that.
Prince Harry has always said he lives to serve and showed this during his time with the royal family, devoting himself to many charitable causes. But since his downfall, his charity work has also been abandoned, which doesn't bode well for any sort of reputational resuscitation he's attempting at the moment.
But I think particularly it was so nice to actually see them come together and do something for their mother. That is much more important, I think, than the rift that is happening between the royal family. And I just think it's such a shame now that Prince Harry's gone down this path, disparaging the royal family and missing the bigger picture, because the work that they were doing for charity, particularly for children and young people, as a team together, I think was incredibly important.
And after several years of lies, whinging and complaining, the public has finally had enough. Prince Harry has been dumped by not only his long-standing fans in the UK, but now also by newfound fans in the US.
I think that the damage might have already been done. I think that they've completely disparaged the royal family, particularly with the Netflix documentary. I think it was so insulting when, for example, Meghan did that fake bow that she did towards the Queen, which I just thought was completely embarrassing and disrespectful to what the royal family represents. So I think it would take some time for the public to actually forgive almost Prince Harry for everything that he's done since.
And it's not only his family and the public who have abandoned the prince. Famous friends are also nowhere to be seen.
Meghan Markle, as she was, and Victoria Beckham are said to have bonded over their shared love of fashion, and the Beckhams were invited to the Sussexes' wedding in Windsor. But apparently there was a bust-up because the Sussexes accused the Beckhams of leaking stories about them to the press, in particular stories about Victoria giving Meghan fashion advice. And it's been claimed that Harry phoned up David Beckham to put those claims to him, and that David Beckham was absolutely furious about it, and their friendship is now over.
Prince Harry, together with Meghan Markle, got themselves into this mess because of countless lies and mistruths they told publicly in an attempt to bring down the royal family, says Sky News All-Star Dan Wooton.
Talk to me about the royal correspondent, Valentine low. And these claims that William and Kate, Prince William and the Duchess Kate, wanted a toughened up statement by the palace in response to that infamous Harry and Meghan interview with Oprah, where they implied it was racism that forced them to leave the UK. And the commentary I read over the weekend, that it was really Kate Middleton, the Duchess Kate, who put the steel in everyone's spine and pushed for the Queen to add in that very famous, I thought beautifully apt line, recollections may vary.
Indeed, this is absolutely fascinating stuff, because for a long time, Kate has been viewed as a quiet force within the royal family, someone who is, by her own proclamation, very happy to let her hubby, Prince William, take the lead. Behind the scenes, that is certainly not the case. I was the first to reveal many years ago now that Kate was the first person to actually call out Meghan for her terrible behaviour towards staff members when she was within the royal family. Now this astonishing new book reveals it was actually Kate, rather than the late Queen, as you say, that insisted that the royal family had to fight back against the untrue allegations of racism put out there into the ether in that despicable tissue of lies Oprah Winfrey interview by Harry and Meghan. And you know what, Peter? She was right to do so, because what we've seen over the past few months is that gutless little Prince Harry roll back on Meghan's claims, but actually not be prepared to say, look, she got it wrong. He said, oh, actually, we were just talking about unconscious bias. No, you weren't. You were talking about royal racism. You allowed the late Queen and you allowed Prince Philip to die with the world believing that the royal family was racist and there was a racist within the royal family. I think it is totally wrong.
But it backfired, and Prince Harry was exposed, which was fatal for his reputation, says Sky News host Esther Krakue.
I made the point that when Harry left the royal family and he didn't have the protection of the royal family's PR machine that was able to manicure his image and protect him from his shenanigans, they managed to spin the whole story of when he dressed up as a Nazi and went to a party and made him come out as a lovable, boisterous young man. When he left the royal family and therefore didn't have that support, his popularity ratings tanked because he was just himself, and the public got to see Prince Harry raw and unfiltered in his entirely oppressed state.
Prince Harry's most public failure following his move to the US was being dumped from his lucrative Spotify deal and hanging on by a thread at his Netflix deal.
Everything they touch turns to dust. I mean, they have the touch of poison.
Employees have said every time this company was mentioned, Harry's association was mentioned with this company in the media, it was underneath an article that was about them lying about a paparazzi chase in New York City, or it was underneath an article that was lying about the royal family refusing to give Archie a title because of his skin color. So they said, really, is he worth the brand recognition he's bringing to the table when the brand recognition is toxic just solely based on the association with him? I mean, I think that a lot of people and celebrities and companies are distancing themselves from the Sussexes because they do seem to be a flop. They do seem to bring drama wherever they go and overpromise and underdeliver. So you're seeing celebrities and companies like Dior quickly trying to distance themselves, saying, no, there's no way we're signing Meghan Markle. That's not happening. And then representatives for people coming out quietly saying, no, she actually was not having dinner or lunch at the sushi restaurant with our client. So I think that they're pretty much considered toxic here in the States at this point in time.
Prince Harry's vendetta against the media hasn't exactly gone to plan, with his lawsuit getting very messy.
Let's stay in the UK if we can, because Prince Harry Prue has lost a major part of his legal claim of phone hacking against the news group newspapers. The judge who has heard his case says that his evidence was vague and limited. I don't suspect you're surprised, are you?
No, not at all, Peter. I mean, he was claiming it from the 1990s to 2016. I mean, he's left it a bit late, and how can he prove that? Look, it's just very sad that this man is relentless now. He's like a spoilt brat who just has to get even in some way, but he's just looking so ludicrous, pretty silly and pretty pathetic.
Prince Harry has obviously had a long-running issue with the media. He's taken court action, and there was a case that was heard in the High Court overnight where the judge said his claims of phone hacking by a news group owned by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Sky News and other publications here in Australia. He said that Prince Harry's claims in his evidence were vague, they were embarrassing, and he threw out part of his claims of alleged phone hacking. Harry basically went to the court well after he claimed this was happening. He only went to court about this in 2019. He claims this was happening to him up to 2016, but he's had this element of his case thrown out. So it's a big loss for him, quite humiliating when his evidence is described in such a disparaging way by the High Court judge.
And throw into the mix his book that caused a stir across the world. But the hype was short-lived.
Now, we've spoken previously on this show about how Spare has been a #1 bestseller, but it turns out it's also the most discarded book.
Yes, according to a tourism company, there have been over 100 copies of Spare left in hotels, on beaches, in restaurants, and all sorts of sort of holiday resorts. And so what it looks like is the hype and the sensationalism behind the book is dying down. Now, we obviously understand why the book became a bestseller. This was completely out of the ordinary. What was at one point a third in line to the throne is now writing a sensationalist book about his traumatic experiences in the royal family, according to his account of the matter. And people were interested. People wanted to know what Prince Harry had to say. But eventually it dawned on people that it was a very empty book. It sounded like a bit of a whinge fest. It was actually fairly expensive. I mean, even before it hit the shelves, it was already, I think in some shops, 50% off. So, you know, the publishers and commercial vendors knew what to expect. But the reality is that it was just sensationalist hype, and that hype will eventually die down. This is a book of very little consequence. Nobody's really going to be remembering Prince Harry's book Spare 100 years from now as some sort of grand piece of non-fiction. So we have to bear that in mind. At the end of the day, it's just his account of what happened. They always, three sides to every story, one side, the other side, and the truth. And unfortunately, two of those three sides are missing, and we'll never find out. So I think people are starting to understand why taking the word of someone like Prince Harry at face value can be unwise.
And to top off Prince Harry's few years from hell, rumours are now swirling of a marriage breakdown, says Meghan Kelly.
Now, we all knew this would happen, but we thought it would be a couple of years down the pipeline. Apparently, Prince Harry is already talking to divorce lawyers.
So this is kind of interesting. This is the woman that the papers are citing for this reporting is a longtime royal insider, a socialite. She's been right. I've been following her because she's great TV. She's been right about a lot. And she's claiming she's heard from several sources now that he's hired a lawyer, and it happens to be somebody who's a great divorce lawyer and specializes in divorce. And it dovetails on other reports that he is spending a lot of his time in two hotels, one of which is in Montecito, another of which is not too far away, as an escape from her. It's entirely plausible. All they've done for 5 years is complain and moan and see themselves as downtrodden victims. That doesn't tend to spur a lot of feelings of love and happiness and close bonding.
What is perhaps the most disappointing part is that Prince Harry has always maintained that he was moving his family to the US and away from royal family duties for safety, happiness, and privacy. But the reality is the opposite. Prince Harry has never been more overexposed and miserable in his life, which confirms the old adage, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
I don't think people are buying that Harry is the real house husband of Montecito, right? I just don't think that they are. And hence the moniker, because he's not in the UK, he doesn't even have a residence in the UK.
He's been ditched, he's kicked out of Frogmore Cottage.
He has been kicked out of Frogmore Cottage. How do you shake that?
Well, it's difficult when you're living in a bubble within one of the most superficial industries on the planet. He's living in LA, in the heart of the entertainment. He's married to an actor. And you know, he doesn't. The problem with authenticity is you've got to know who you are to be authentic. And this poor kid doesn't. He's what, nearly 40?
Yeah.
It's my elder statesperson. I'm 50 now. Did you guys know that? So he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
And how do you communicate genuine, you know, an authenticity to your brand and to the things that you do when you fundamentally don't know it yourself?
That is a brilliant point, can I just say?
Thank you
That
very
really
much.
goes
You
to
can
the
come
heart
back.
of, sorry, Carol,
No,
I
you're right.
simply must say, that is exactly what my takeaway from the book was.
Yeah.
Is simply, you do feel sorry for him,
Yep.
separating it from the circus with Meghan. You do feel so sorry for him because he's a boy who just never really grew up around people that he felt he could be himself around, trust. He was so damaged by his mother's death, and you feel sad for him because he doesn't know who he is.
100%, but then I go, William turned out all right, and he's not the first person in the world to have childhood trauma.